video. I apologize for the last one. I was trying to keep the noise down a little bit because my wife was sleeping, and I understand it wasn't very loud for people to be able to hear it. So I wanted to try it again and see how it comes out. What I wanted to talk about is the personal changes that I've been noticing that have been going on relating to the fourth dimensional shifts that we have been going on. The last couple of videos I talked about how the changes are happening around the world and different events and how that thing's being updated. So what I wanted to do is talk about some of the things that happened to me personally in order to show you that things are in fact happening on a different level than just worldwide. So the first thing, probably the biggest thing, was I disappeared again. Okay? If for those of you who read my book, you understand that this also happened to me probably 10, 12 years ago when we were up in Washington State. Irene and I went to town. We usually did the same routine every time. And I dropped her off at Goodwill, which is where we started. I went to the post office and I came back, which is less than a quarter of a mile. So we're talking very small town. And Irene, I wanted to know, well, where had I been? Why had I been gone so long? For me, I had simply gone to the post office and returned. For me, it was a matter of 5 minutes. It turns out she was waiting for an hour and a half for me. And when I got back to the Goodwill, I had walked in, looked at the time, and it was 10 minutes to 2. And so at the end of the day, as we were heading home, and our routine normally took about 3 hours, I realized that we had been in town for an hour and a half longer than our normal routine. And so I started checking the receipts. And Randy said, well, you've been gone for quite a while. That's why I was wondering what happened. I looked at the receipts, and it showed I had left the post office at 12:15. And remember, when I got to Goodwill, it was 10 minutes to 2. So somehow, during that time, I had disappeared for an hour and a half along with my truck. For me, there was no time difference. For Irene, it was an hour and a half. The next day, when I was doing my walk, I felt like I had been walking through water. Basically, felt very dense, very hard to move. For 3 days, I felt like I was standing on a boat dock on a lake, rocking back and forth. And what I was told later on was that that had happened. I was taken to a high, what we would call a higher dimension, higher vibration, in order to experience it. So I know what it was like because I would be doing that in the future. Well, that hadn't happened since that time that I was aware of. And it was probably 3 weeks ago now, because the last 3 to 4 weeks have been very eventful. So about 3 weeks or so ago, I was out for my walk, and I decided to change where I was walking. We live in Sun City, Aliante, here in Las Vegas, a senior community. And to the east of us, in Tool Springs, they're building what this is about 8,000 home communities, and they've been developing, and I've driven through there, but I've never walked down that way. So I decided to take that walk and go through that development, which would come out around our Sun City development. I'd come back in a different way, and it's roughly around 6.5 miles in that area. On this walk, the only stop I made is I stopped about 3/4 of the way around to readjust my socks. I had some new insoles, and then I continued on. But when I got home, I looked at the time and I realized that according to the clocks at home, I'd been gone for a little over 3 hours. My pedometer, which is my phone, which I've been using for a couple of years and never had a problem with, it's activated by motion. Whenever you're moving, it records your time, and it also records how far you're going. My pedometer showed that I had stopped. Basically, I had not moved for an hour and a half. Now, normally, had I not had the other incident up in Colville, I would have said, okay, no big deal, just a mistake. But I had the pedometer for a couple of years, never had a problem, and I haven't had a problem since that walk. And I still do my walking most of the time, probably 4 times a week. So essentially, I disappeared again for an hour and a half, which coincides with the last time, which is an hour and a half. I'm not sure what the significance of that is. It may have to do with how long you can be gone before you have to come back into the same place and time that you left. This time, I did not have those feelings of heaviness or like I was walking through water or rocking back and forth. So it's essentially I'm getting used to being able to make that move in that shift as they told me I was going to. Another thing that happened is normally when I close my eyes, I see purple. it's kind of a light, bright type purple. It's not something, not really that color I've seen very much of here on this world. I see it when I close my eyes, and it's relating to, from what I understand, relating to the Pleiades system, that purple. Um, the other day when I was laying in bed, I looked towards the opening coming into the room because there's no doors there, and I noticed that the entire doorway was covered in a purple veil, and it wasn't in my eyes. My eyes were open. It wasn't anywhere else in the room. It stayed just within that opening, and I realized that it was a portal of some kind. And since it relates to the Pleiades, that color, I thought maybe someone was coming to visit me from the Pleiades, family, or someone else coming to give me information. So I asked, that said, if anybody is there, they want to come see me, come on in so we can talk, whatever we need to do. Or if it's a portal that I need to go through, that I can, but I can also return if I choose, and that I would have full memory of whatever happened. Before I was able to do that either physically or through out of body, my cat came into the room and jumped up on the bed. And when she did that, that dissolved that portal. Now, this cat is an animal that has bonded to me very strongly. She is very protective, when it comes to other people, when it comes to other animals. Even when I use the device I use to charge my phone or my pacemaker device, I have to do it once a week. If it starts beeping because it doesn't have a connection, then she comes over and she starts to sniff it. She starts to push on it with her nose. She's trying to find out and make sure that I'm okay with it. So when she came in, it basically told me that it was not time for me to go through that portal at this point. But again, the fact is, it did happen, and I relate that to the other times when it disappeared. So it's telling me that things are are changing, things are shifting. Another thing that happened is that I have this necklace that I made. It's Amazonite. I made this probably several months ago, and I wore it for a few days. And what happened at the end of those few days is that it suddenly started coming apart. Now, if you notice here, it's got a gold, these are magnets, and they are very strong magnets. It's very hard to get them apart. Yet, when I was wearing it, it fell off and came undone 3 or 4 different times, which, because of past experiences I've had when I've worn crystals, it tells me that it's not time for me to be wearing that crystal, so I took it off. I have since started wearing it again about the last 3 weeks now, and it has not come off one time, telling me again that the crystals and what they're doing are working better. The and I mentioned that in my fourth book, Entering the Fourth Dimensional Matrix, that crystals and alternative healing methods are going to be working much better than they have in the past. And this is an example of that being needed this time. And what shows me that this crystal, again, was needed is when I was charging my device that I have in my chest, I have to do it once a week. It has a little battery thing, and you lay it over top of the device, and then it charges itself. Well, I've had it for a while, and I've never had a problem with it. When I was sitting on the couch this time to do it, it was not connecting. No matter what I did, no matter where I placed it, it would not connect with the device in my chest. Then I realized I was wearing the necklace. So I took the necklace off, I set it down on the counter next to me, and it still wouldn't connect. Well, I took the necklace into the bedroom and laid it in there, which is a ways away from me. My device then connected, and I got 4 bars out of 4 worked perfectly after that. And as I've mentioned, that the alternative healing devices, alternative measures, alternative other things are going to be working much better now than they have in the past. Another example of that is my daughter or my stepdaughter. She's kind of intuitive, and she does waxing and other body work for people, but she also does other things kind of with her clients as she goes along. And what we did is we gave her a bunch of the tuning forks that we used to use because we're not going to be using those anymore. And she had one of her clients that came in. I explained to her how to use the tuning forks, um, and the mental state you needed to be into, how you needed to allow, and so on. Maybe one of her clients came in, and this client had had a stroke in the past and had no feeling at all in her left arm. So Leanna used the brain tuning fork, and 3 days later, the lady said that she had some tingling in her arm. Again, these things are going to start working, and there's also going to be changes in them as we move along, and it's going to make those things work a lot better, and they're also going to be modified in order to help them. One other thing that was going on that I think we need to really be aware of is that our thoughts and our words now are starting to manifest quicker. This is something that happened twice within an 8-hour period for us. Rain and I were talking about, um, well, it was a castor oil, basically. It's how it's supposed to help with cataracts and help people who have bags under their eyes and so on. And she and I were discussing this, and we had not looked it up on the computer. And about a couple hours later, she said that it came up on her feed with the castor oil, saying that it helped with cataracts and other things, exactly the same things we had been talking about. And the next morning, we were talking about dogs and training dogs and so on. And again, weren't doing this on the internet, and we don't have Alexis or any of those systems that monitor us. She got a video came up on her feed talking about training dogs and how to train them and how people should do this and that. So what this is showing us is that in the past we had to connect to the matrix, to the AI system through the computers or our phones. It's now showing us that we don't have to do that anymore, that our thoughts and our words are now starting to connect us to the systems. In other words, things are going to be manifesting for us based on thoughts and words. But it also shows us that we need to start monitoring our words and our thoughts. There was something that was said a long time ago, and I feel that that's pretty accurate, is that as we move forward, people who have a lot of fears are going to find that those fears are going to be manifesting, which is going to end up killing those people off, so they're not going to continue to move forward. This idea now that our thoughts and our words are starting to manifest faster is telling us that we need to start watching a little bit about what we think and what we say, because as we move forward, those things are going to be manifesting. So you have the fears and all those issues going on. If you still hold on to that stuff, it's going to start manifesting in your world. So start controlling your thoughts, start controlling your words a little bit better. And as you do, you're going to be moving to a better world, better reality. If you don't, you will simply end up basically killing yourself, and you will not be able to move forward so quickly. So something else as kind of a side note, I know there's a lot of talk about the tariffs that have been happening around the world, and people up and down, and I'm not politically involved in any of this, but it does point to what I've talked about in my book, and that is entering the fourth dimensional matrix and the things that have to change in the political system, the economic system, financial system. These are all things that have to change. And the concept of the tariffs is to level out the playing field around the world. And yes, there are going to be companies that are going to make money off of this. But the idea is, as we level out these playing fields, what's going to happen is it's going to make things more accessible to other people. They're going to have products that they didn't have access to before, because now they're able to be sold in their country at a rate in which people can afford. So again, it's starting to help a little bit with the abundance that we have and is available to us. Remember before I talked about the new element that was discovered, how it's going to relate to basically creating things from energy, kind of like what we do now with the 3D printing. So this tariff thing is kind of a step in that direction that is allowing us to get things happening more worldwide. And the idea is that the abundance is there. There's basically almost an unlimited abundance of everything for everybody. It's there. This is a first step in allowing that to happen. Again, the economic part of it, the financial part with the companies is going to change over time, but it is showing that we are moving forward and able to do that. So anyway, I think that's about it for this time. Have yourself a great day.